So, let's go back to the paper. Okay, so here's what it looks like. Again, the comma issue, you don't have the comma there. New paragraph. I really like this this statement here. You said leadership must be understood as a process of unfolding. That's right, as opposed to a process of building. Managers are trying to make some system. Leaders are trying to kind of, develop people. It's a process of unfolding, helping people grow. It's not as much about the things as it is the people. Okay, so let me scroll down a little. Leadership, the key component of leadership is trust, respect, and equality. Okay, argue that that's true. Yes, I'm saying yes, I agree, but prove to me why. Why is that true? Trust, respect, and equality. Those factors. Whose paper was that from? Okay. Why trust?
Because it's all about that relationship.
Uh-huh.
So you have to have trust between leaders.
That's right. I mean, that's probably the most important factor. You get that straight, a lot of other things fall into place. Right? Respect? Why?
You show respect, you get respect.
Yeah, right. We're human and we're funny. If
Right.
we feel slighted or disrespected, man, the grief that will come for years out of that toward whoever did that to you, right? I still don't like people from elementary school. Okay? And I'm not like trying to hold on to anything, but I'm just, right? They were human.
We want closure.
Yeah, this is how human beings operate. Equality, why?
There has to be an equal playing field there. I mean, you have to treat the others how you want to be treated, and you have to treat them equal with everyone else.
Good. Okay, here when we get down to concern him or herself with the needs, I said fix this. Okay. You can write the leader himself, you can write the leader herself, you can write leaders themselves. But don't get bulky with him and herself. And I mean, it's an awkward way of phrasing things as you go through. And don't do him, he/her, or anything like that. Just choose one and go with it. It's fine.
Yeah, we toyed with that. One of the last changes we made was that.
Was that your last change?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we had
themselves, I think.
Yeah, so, what you don't want to do is a leader themselves, right? You don't want to switch from singular to plural. That's very bad. Okay, that's also grammatically wrong, let alone bulky like that was.
So just
Okay.
stick with one.
Yeah, stick with one, and usually the safest way is to pluralize it. But I don't think there's a problem if you use he as he. I mean, you might offend somebody, but he is a neutral something if you don't know the gender, right? It has historically been that way for hundreds of years, and I don't think that I won't ding you for it. Right? And if you're talking about a she in context, change it to she. I mean, that's simple.
Stuff.
Follow opportunities within an organization. Okay, it's great, but you have to cite and then create a new paragraph there. Break up the large paragraph here, and I'm not sure where you want to do that. Leadership is a relationship between two or more people. Yes. If you understand leadership as a relationship, it makes a lot more sense than if you just look at the leader and then forget about the followers that are supposed to be following him. It's like, so I've heard before, marriage is a new entity. It's not he or she. This sounded weird after what we just described, but it's a they, right? It's the entity of them. Leadership operates the same way, right? You have to, if you're not factoring both leader and follower into it, then you're not getting the full picture. The one social system, 5 leader behaviors is inclusion, respecting, rewarding, improving, modeling. That's very good. I really like this line. The North Star, the flag, the sacred pole, the leader are all dynamic centers, and they all give orientation. Whose was that? Yeah, that was good stuff, wasn't it? And when you found that, you were like, hey, this one works, right? But there's something to that, right? You stick that flag in the ground, now we know what to rally to. Same thing. The leader has to be able to do that. And if he's not doing that, it's all kind of falling apart. The strategies that you employ as a leader are more important than what you know.
Yep.
I like that one. Whose was that? Was that yours? Yeah, why?
Well, just like Jim Harner said, something along the lines of, it's not as much about what you know, but I'm trying to piece it together here. It's about relationships. It's about how you treat others. I think was the spirit of it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the basic strategies.
So you can read these books all day and be a crappy leader,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
Because reading it doesn't make doing. And it's what you do with it that's going to count. Now, hopefully the reading will help you, will inform what you're going to do. But if you just read about it, you're no better off than you were before. So there's got to be that connection. Let's see here. Apple's success relied on his leader. We're talking about Steve Jobs, and I was like, be careful. Jobs' leadership style appease. Okay, so Jobs is a piece of work, right? I mean, I think he was a dictator myself. Now, he was a very intuitive, creative dictator, but I wouldn't recommend him as a model for anybody. The more you read about Jobs, the more you might take my approach, but just trust me on this temporarily. You can look at it. I wouldn't want to work for him. Let me put it like that.
Right.
I wouldn't want my sons, like Drucker talked about,
Yes.
to work for him. Okay? Leaders are often morally disappointing. That was interesting. Who had that?
I did.
Why?
Just because, like, well, it talks about like Hitler or different leaders in history that
Isn't it interesting? They're awesome at something, and we give them accolades for it, but then often the rest of their life is a mess.
There's no ethic.
Yeah, or they climb their way to the top by stabbing people in the back,
Look
right?
at what's taken down so many of our congressmen and senators in
Right.
the past years.
Yeah.
All
It
the
hit hard.
scandals.
Yeah, that part hit hard for what was going on.
Yeah.
I was watching the news a lot, so I was going,
I
that makes a
understand.
lot of sense.
Good leader must be willing to hold final responsibility and authority.
I did.
That's pretty good too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not, then why are you occupying that spot? Leadership is about serving and ensuring a supportive connection to others. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you had some good things. Now, when we get into the references, what do you notice?
Capitalism.
I got
It's all the same problem, which is great. You have lots of problems, but it's all the same thing, which means it's really easy to fix.
Simple to fix.
Right, yeah.
I got an issue with the references, because when we go to the Eco Boost or whatever the database is for Charleston Southern.
I told you, don't
and
depend
you-
on it.
And you copy inside them, some were completely all capital letters, some were.
Yep, don't depend on it.
The main, or the main nouns, the main, whatever, were capitalized.
Did you split
some
this
were
up?
all
I just had a
lowercase.
question because I was reading this and I saw that it was the first page was all like this, and then the second page was almost perfect until you got to the end, and then the ending had some. Did you split that up, or did the same person do the whole thing?
We think we all looked at it.
Yeah.
We all.
How'd you all look at it and have that many capitalization issues?
We all put our parts in, but yeah, he said it
It's
realistically.
completely
We all
hard
scanned
to-
over it and looked through it.
Hard to figure out what.
Okay, so with all that, you did a great job. I still left it as a 96. Technically, I could have dinged you for a lot more, but it was essentially the only issue that you had in your references was the same capitalization issue again and again and again. So fix that next time. You capitalize the first word in the title, the first word after a colon or
Yes.
some kind of break if it comes to a question mark, and proper names like Paris or whatever. Right?
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Why do you think we don't capitalize, I don't know, the nouns in a title?
Yeah,
Like
that's
in
sort of
every
what-
other
that's
form.
what-
Yeah, we're taught all the way through school until we get to APA, and then they do it that way. I don't know. Maybe it's some APA experiment on us that they're monitoring us or something. I have no idea. But nonetheless, I was really pleased, especially after the weird start you got, right? And I was like, okay, let's try this again. But then you picked it up, right? You did great. So we should be fine for DB2. I'm very impressed with where we are.
Well, that's good.
It's very good.
That's what frustrating them references, just
I understand.
eat me up.
Hey,
Okay,
he's got
so
listeners.
here. Oh, let me put my little clicker in.
Will you actually post that document back for us to see, or is that just for your eyes?
You can have it.
I
I
mean,
mean, I've already graded it.
that way we can kind of,
That way I can take
Keep
a
an eye
good
on it.
solid look at it and
make
make
sure we
them
don't,
notes
yeah,
out.
make sure.
Yeah,
we're
I can do
doing
that.
Certain things again.
Sure. That's no problem. I'll send it out tonight. All right. Okay. So this is week 2. What'd you learn? What minivan moments did you have last week?
I had to do a counseling today,
Okay.
and I approached the counseling. The guy was just behavior issues, right?
Mhm.
Just things simply fixed. But I addressed it with respect to him
Mm-hmm.
and with servant of him, rather than me being like, "This is what you need to fix." I was more like, "Hey, we've got a problem here." You know?
But doesn't this is what we need to fix feel so good?
But, you know, but
Yeah, it does.
Come on, you know it's true. When you're doing it, when you're the one telling them, it feels good.
But I came to him with respect of, hey, these are things that I see that need improvement, but at the same time, am I not challenging
Mhm.
you? Am I boring you?
And how was it received?
You know, yeah, it went really well.
Yeah,
He
good.
said, I'll fix it. He said,
Yeah,
I
good.
totally agree, and I'll fix it.
Turns out people like to be talked to with respect.
Yeah.
How about that? Anybody else?
I've got a little something.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's not totally related right to our class, but I have to praise my wife, who's not here, because she's a leader, even though her job title is a manager, based on what happened at the express care that she works with, the location that she works, and the way she led her people during the turbulent times of what days are we gonna open, what time we're gonna open and close, and how she stood up for her own people.
Mhm.
And that's just in a nutshell. I mean, I can give you a little more details if you need more, but it's just as simple as all of us are the
But you're
workers.
seeing it now.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I've always known she's been more of a leader than a manager, but with the concepts just over the first couple of weeks, it's just amazing. I could see it in action right there, right, it hits home. Because in my current position, I'm just down here on the bottom, I don't have any people, I'm not in charge of anything, I just show up for work and go home, so.
Mhm.
And I keep looking for it above me, but I haven't really seen it yet, because I don't really go to many meetings or anything like that, so I'm kind of waiting to see what kind of goes on around me over the course of the next month or so, and see if I pick up some more interesting things that might be going on.
Okay, go ahead.
Not necessarily what I'm dealing with, but helping a friend over the phone,
Okay,
because he's been put in a position of authority in a retail store. Just helping him know how to talk to people and point out things they can do better in a positive manner to get them in the game on it.
okay. So after last week's, the material that we covered in the last session, when you listened to the servant leadership training course, did it add a lot of nuance to it?
Well, just
Oh,
what he
yeah.
did. Well, he
Yes.
just said the authority. I have a different way of looking at authority
Yes.
Versus power.
versus
Yeah.
power now.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, it's like authority is something that you earn from your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And like Mother Teresa or whoever, they have authority. You're not gonna make a joke about them,
Yeah.
and it's pretty neat. 'Cause
Yeah.
you really don't think that way.
No, I think
You know?
that was a section, when I got to that section, I decided I'm using that in class.
You know?
I mean, that's where I finally said, because before that, so I was listening to it at my kids' soccer practice. I was just walking up and down the sideline, getting a little exercise and listening to it just for myself, right? Because I'm nerdy and that's what I do. And I was thinking, wow, this is pretty good. Maybe I should swap this out with what I did in the last class. And oh, this is pretty good. When I got to that section, I was like, yeah, I crossed the Rubicon. I was set to do it. Okay, so in the beginning of what we were talking about, in the first session, we were talking about bad leadership. I don't push my people, but I get results, so I should be promoted, right? And then, no, it's not like that. It's just I lead my people, and there's a difference between pushing and pulling, right? Now, so we're going to talk about as a servant, you serve first and then lead. And so this brings us to the servant leadership training course. And so I'm going to go through a number of quotes, and it took a long time to listen and then like back up the tape and try to quote things directly, but we're going to just go through that and then we'll talk about it. Don't feel like you need to raise your hand, just let's talk, okay? All right, whenever two or more people are gathered together for a purpose, there's an opportunity for leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah, did that resonate with anybody else?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even over
Why?
the phone.
Yeah, even on the phone. Why?
It's you're talking together. There's a relationship of some sort going on.
Yeah, we can guide to that mutual place that we're trying to get to, right? Leadership is a skill. It's about influence. It's about character, right? It's about both influence and character. Now, this is important. It's a skill because that means that it's a learned or acquired ability. It's accessible to anyone. That gives me hope.
Yeah. You're
Right?
not born with it, or there'd be no use in this class.
Right, I mean, right? Why would we be here?
Or at least,
Here is the thing that's accessible to him, but not the rest of you.
Yeah.
That would be silly.
or at least 95% of the population.
Right, most people,
Yeah.
in some way or another, can lead others, even if it's informally or in a small setting. Okay? Continuous improvement. How many of you believe in continuous improvement? Can you improve if you don't change? You have to change. And leadership is all about change. Management is about coping with complexity. Leadership is about change. It's moving to somewhere else. I don't need you to follow. I don't need a leader if I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. Right? To get me somewhere else. I know how to get there.
you're gonna change whether you want to or not, whether it's in a good direction or a bad direction.
Good. Leadership is an awesome responsibility. What's it like to work for you? Would you want to work for you? Now be honest. Would you want to work for you?
I would.
You would?
I would too.
That's not what they said. No, I'm just kidding.
I actually asked 30 people today. I actually asked 30 people I work with. I was like, how do you see me? Like, what's your view?
You asked 30 people at
I
work.
did.
Wow, look at that.
It's good to
All
solicit
right.
feedback.
Because, I mean, I just wanted to know how you're seeing it.
And?
One of them said, there's a lot of people in this building blessed by your presence.
Wow, that's nice. That's affirming.
Yeah?
Okay, now people who really, really, really don't like you might not say anything. They might
That's
just
right.
they might just sit on their
I
hands.
asked people that
Be
should not
tight-lipped.
like me. And they were just like, I enjoy working with you,
Okay.
you know, so,
So you're not necessarily sure that you're going to get it, but it was good to be affirmed,
yep.
right? You know, that first form that you filled out, the leadership questionnaire that Hunter talked about, that you did last week. Now, so that form, you know, it would be great if you could get feedback from people that you work with, because that would be a lot, I mean, anonymous feedback, truly anonymous feedback. Because you tend to give yourself the benefit of the doubt and things. I do.
Yeah.
Right? Well, no, that's just me. I mean, I'm not really like that. But that doesn't mean that your perception isn't that I'm a jerk. Right? How about anybody else?
I guess I could say I'd be more inclined to work for myself now than the way I used to be, because the only thing I used to understand was power.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Unpack that.
Yeah.
Unpack that.
Marines.
For instance, not even that, it's the way I was raised.
Yeah.
If you didn't hold up a sledgehammer figuratively or this or that, I'd laugh at you.
Okay? And
That's
so you
how it
weren't
was.
so you weren't worth the trouble or
I was one of those people that would fall within that 10% that could not be persuaded by good leadership.
Okay?
But if you were forceful and intimidating and all that, then I suddenly felt like.
Yeah, if you're a
maybe
little
I
bit
wanna
more
do
alpha.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those were some of the problems that I've had.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that could lead to a lot of problems.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. What else? Anybody else?
When I worked for Company X, I was an older guy, and the other two guys were young college graduates, right? They had just gotten out of school.
Uh-huh.
And I was helping them, you know, mentoring them and showing them kind of how to do certain things. And we went to a company, you know, all hands meeting, they call it. So everybody shows up. And there was another young guy over here to the side that was a software developer that saw what I would do with the two guys that I had started with. He came up to me at work one day, he said, "Would you be my mentor?" So I figure that's probably one of the greatest
that's quite a
things I've
compliment.
done in my entire life.
Yeah.
I almost love this kid to death now, and I was just like all over like white on rice. You know, I was helping him do everything that I could. I didn't know I couldn't solve software development problems because I don't understand that stuff, but I did a lot of other things to help him on his journey and how to progress and different things to help him out. So that was a
great.
great feeling.
Sir?
I would say working on his paper with Joe, he's very servant. He
Okay.
was leading the paper, but he was very servant. He was very much a servant as doing what he needed to do. You could tell he was in charge of the paper,
Uh-huh.
but you couldn't tell if he was working for us
Now you're hitting
or
something
if we
really
were working
interesting.
for him.
That's good. You're hitting something really interesting. The paper was as much about a leadership experience as it was about the paper content. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right? Having to work
we
together, teamwork, all that kind of
we
fun
did
stuff.
all that stuff.
Good, because this is,
Everybody had-
I recognize that for many of you, this is the first class. It's kind of supposed to be like the first class or maybe the second class or somewhere in there, right? It's supposed to be early on experience. And if you don't know, like I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, would I want to work for me? If I knew me, I would say yes. But in my first experience, sometimes I often shock students and they don't, is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so she's had me in class before, so yeah. So it's right. It's kind of a shock. If you know that I'm in your corner, it's a very different experience. And if you think, "What's this guy crazy? What's he doing?" Right? You just have to trust the process for a little bit, and it'll come together, right? So, but yeah, and even I recognize that in myself. Okay. What else? Anybody else?
Which class was the mean class?
Mean class?
You said mean class?
No, not a mean class.
Oh, I'm
people
sorry.
people think that I'm just masochistic until they realize what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
I have a plan and a reason for everything I do, but it just looks like, what? At first. Unless you're, yeah, okay. So, no, it's not a mean class, it's mean me. Right, okay, leadership is a serious, leadership is serious meddling in other people's lives. It is, right? When you're telling other people what they can and can't do, that kind of control, be careful. And be careful how you exercise it. Max Dupree wrote that, and these are a number of books. He was chairman of Herman Miller for a number of years. Leadership is a sacred trust. That comes from John Wooden, not only who won many, 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 many championships, also wrote a number of books, had a whole pyramid of success thing, and how do you try to, I mean, he was more interested in mentoring his players than he was just winning. Leadership is about your character. Notice these quotes about character. Leadership is character in action. Warren Bennis. 95% of leadership failures are failures of character. Schwarzkopf. Character is that person that you are in the dark when nobody's looking. Dwight L. Moody. Habits lead to character, which lead to destiny. That's it. Aristotle talking, right? Change happens in the crucible of the choices that we make every day. Right? And we're going to make lots of choices. Now, I don't know if we're going to make 15,000 choices in a given day, but we're going to make lots of choices in a given day. And it's those small changes and those small decisions that we make that add up. Remember Pavlov's dog? This little world between stimulus and response is where leadership happens. Because you can choose. You can decide if you're going to go this way or that way. You're not completely impacted by your environment. You are impacted by your environment, but you have a choice. Animals have no freedom. They simply respond to instinct. So the question is, will I just react to lusts or respond to values? You got to make that choice in each of those opportunities to make a choice each day. Character is doing the right thing even when you don't feel like it. Now, leadership's a tricky thing because sometimes you're kind of persuaded to do something that you otherwise wouldn't do. Like you wouldn't act like a jerk and tell somebody, just do it my way if you didn't have power, right? But once you have that power, that becomes tempting, right? So you got to think through this character. What would you want to experience if you were in your seat, right? One way of looking at it. Human nature is going to the bathroom in your pants. Dr. M. Scott Peck. Anybody else that line grab you? That's right.
It makes sense.
I've been changing diapers for 12 years straight. I have 6 kids that are 12 to 2. I haven't been out of diapers since the first baby was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
Little practice.
That's human nature,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
What is not human nature?
Learning to use
Potty training. Yeah.
Learning to use the toilet.
So there's a difference between character, which is doing the right thing, and just going in your pants. Leadership requires a mature leader. Great leadership is about getting over your twos. You want to know what human nature is? Look at a two-year-old show it to us in spades. Me first, poo-poo on you, right? That's my daughter there. She's very pretty. Of course, I'm a little biased,
Is that the
but
princess you wanted?
no, that's not the princess. That's the happy one, right?
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's cute in a 2-year-old when they do things like that, but it's not she's 5 now, right? It's not when she's 5. And it certainly is not when you say an equivalent form of that in a mature adult meeting in a meeting, right? Wait, you're 40, what?
Yeah.
Those are the rest of my kids. The princess is the one that's down there looking like a princess.
Yeah, the one on
Yeah,
the
you
right.
can tell,
Yeah.
right? And this is what they really look like. So, anyway, how human beings work is Dr. Menninger was asked, Dr. Menninger, if you knew that one of your clients was about to have a nervous breakdown, what would you tell them to do to head it off?
Go help somebody with something.
Yeah, isn't that remarkable? Go help somebody. That's a simple question. I tell that person to leave the house, lock their door, go across the railroad tracks and find someone who needs help and help them. Well, it's counterintuitive. Why?
Because you
People
worry about
think-
yourself in a nervous breakdown, but the answer is to help another person
Mhm.
outside of yourself.
People somehow think that if they focus on themselves, that they can somehow just get rid of the problem or deal with the problem.
Uh-huh. So there's a halfway house in San Francisco called Delancey Street. And Delancey Street, one of the keys to their success is they take in these people that are users and former gang members and whatever else. And as soon as they enter, as soon as somebody is assigned to be their mentor, right? So you might have only been in here 2 weeks before I got there, and now you're my mentor, and I'm looking to you for help. But as soon as he comes in, I've only been here 5 days now. He's my mentee, and I'm his mentor. But the questions really are never asked, well, how are you doing? It's, how's your guy doing? Well, now I have some reason, I have some purpose. I'm taking care of him. I'm going to make sure that he stays straight.
Same track, yeah.
Right? Do you see the difference? There's something really powerful there. That social connection is really powerful. Okay. Leadership development, in effect, is character development. Isn't it?
Habits.
It's character development for the leader as much as for the people. Right? I mean, you have to develop your character to do the right thing too. We were not born good. Did you have to teach your 2-year-old to be bad? I didn't. I know that when my child goes into the kitchen and is walking out like this, with something behind his back, turning his back to me, walking unnaturally, what's that you got behind your back?
No.
Where? Nothing. Right? I know that they shouldn't do that. I didn't have to teach them that. That's good little sin nature working already. Right? Because if you, like, I had this conversation with my daughter the other day, because we're talking about, well, I didn't know I shouldn't eat that. Did you eat it in front of your siblings? Did you walk out into the middle of the kitchen and just start chomping on it, or did you run upstairs to your room and hide in there and eat it? Right? They know better.
Yep.
That's human nature. An observation about character. This was fascinating. This old woman on her deathbed. My old friends are just like they were when they were younger, only more so. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
The selfish ones are more selfish. The good ones are now saints.
I have to say that even where I'm at, I'm only 39, and it reminds me of what I've gone through over the last 5 years of figuring this stuff out about myself.
Uh-huh.
That reminded me so much of what I figured out.
Now, what's interesting about that is that there are certain things that amplify.
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
The people that are so concerned about themselves and pointing the finger, condemning others, judging, all that, they get consumed by it.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to pass that, no, it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what else amplifies?
Their environment.
The environment?
If the environment they're in, it amplifies how they are.
Okay. What else amplifies how you are?
People you hang around with.
Okay. How about fame? Does that amplify you?
Yep.
Money, power, success?
Mm-hmm.
All those things amplify. If you're kind of a jerk, you're going to be a real jerk if you got lots of money or power. Right?
It wasn't that somebody became a jerk, it's just that it came out.
Yeah, you might have been able to hide it before, but that's right. And a generous person, they're going to still be generous. That's the way it's going to be. But generous person sounds like that's who they are. No, that's a trait that you work on over time. You don't just have a generosity gene. Choices, your past choices have defined the person that you are today. So he talks about the 6th grade teacher who says that you don't have to do your homework.
Yeah.
What? I don't have to do my homework. This was a revelation. So I went home and told my dad, I don't have to do my homework.
Taxes and pay bills.
And what did dad say?
Then you're doing-
Oh, sure, you don't have to do your homework.
You're about to die.
I had this conversation, we homeschool, and I had this conversation with one of my kids just the other day.
Yeah.
No, you have to do it. Or I will crush you. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say I will crush you. But I mean, no, you have to do it. I mean, that's just part of this. I mean, this is a much easier environment with me than it would be otherwise.
Just like convincing my son, who doesn't always have much appetite to eat,
Mm-hmm.
explain to him, getting to understand how the nourishment helps his body.
Mm-hmm. So the 6th grade teacher says you don't have to do your homework, and he tells his dad that, and his dad's not having it. Take out the garbage. Well, I don't have to die and pay taxes. No, it doesn't work that way. Right? You do have to die, you do have to pay taxes, you also have to take out the garbage, right? I mean, there's something more here, but you do have choices. Now, he could have had a choice to say, no, screw you, I'm not going to do that, and then take whatever was coming to him, right? But something was going to come to him if he kept that up,
Oh, yes.
right? But you do have choice.
I've heard like multiple times in like research that just the way you word what you're gonna do, like if you say I have to diet or I have to go to work today, then it's like you're less likely to be for it. But if you have
Really?
have a sense of choice, like you're saying, I'm choosing to go to work or I'm choosing to diet, you're more likely to stick with it.
Wow, I would like to track down that research.
Yeah, so
That's
it's
really
like-
interesting.
If you see it as a choice rather than you have to, it's just a better.
Right, and nobody likes to be told what to do,
Yep.
right? You don't like to be, think about your job. How many of you would like to have your boss come in and say, well, you know what, I know you're doing this way, but I think you should do it in this entirely different way because that's how I see it. Nobody? Anybody volunteer? Like, yeah, hands up, show me. No hands? Isn't that amazing?
Versus I hate to see you fall on your face again and again.
Right. Now, his story earlier, hey, how can I help you? How can I support you? What can I do for you? Sure. There's a difference between checking up on somebody, what are you doing, as opposed to checking in with, how can I help?
Yep.
Big difference. Night and day.
But I addressed it because of listening. I addressed it that way. I was like, hey, what if I'm gonna address it this way? You
Mhm.
know, because of listening to that guy yesterday.
And it's much more well received.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Stephen Covey talks about it like this. When you have a choice and consequences, they're connected. It's like picking up one end of the stick. If you pick up one end of the stick, if you pick it off the ground, you pick up the other end. So when you make a choice, you get to make the choice, but the consequences come with it.
Yeah.
They're connected. That's just the reality. Now, remember, I think we even talked about this quote in the first one, right? So this is attributed to Ford. Why is it that I always get a whole person when what I really want is a pair of hands? Awful,
Yeah.
right?
If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
So if leadership is influence, right? But here, what we really want is we want to get leadership getting people from the neck up.
Yep.
We don't just want them from the neck down. That's what Ford was saying. I just want them to do whatever I tell them. No, why would you want that? They're all the potentials from the neck up.
Yep.
How are you going to do this differently from the neck up? We didn't talk about your project yet. Which leader did you ever settle on that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So who are you going to do?
Colin Powell.
Colin Powell. That's a great choice. Okay, so when I did this in the past, when I started off as a professor, I was kind of bad at this, and I would assign what you're going to do, and then I figured, oh no, let me not assign this one, this one, this one, and that one. But I still had like 3 pages of very detailed. This you do exactly this, and this, and I got it, and it was done, but it was lifeless. And I'm thinking, like, what's wrong? I mean, I came up with all the instructions. I mean, I pretty much did everything for them as far as how they have to think about it. And then they check off the list. And it was just kind of boring. Why? Well, because it wasn't yours, it was mine. Right?
Directives and procedures.
Yeah, I gave you all the directive, and so it was, you didn't have the ownership over it. So I swung way over to the other side of that fence. Right? So you know the rough outline of what you need to do and how you fill that in. Well, I mean, I'll help you and kind of guide things, but I'm not going to tell you how and what and exactly in great detail. And when I do that, I usually get really good projects. So there's a big difference between those two, because I want you from the neck up. That's where all the progress is going to be, from the neck up. The qualities of moral character that enable a person to inspire and influence a group of people successfully. That's the definition of leadership from the Marine Corps.
Yep.
Right? Now, notice that. Qualities of moral character that enable a person to inspire and influence. Right? This isn't just, I'm telling you what to do, but there's a lot more to that in this definition. Influence. Who had more influence than anyone? Well, Hunter's quoting H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells said, I'm a historian, I'm not a believer, but I must confess as a historian that in this penniless preacher from Nazareth is irrevocably the very center of history. Jesus Christ is easily the most dominant figure in all of history. That's Wells, who doesn't believe in grace, but he's going, that's right. So makes Hunter start thinking, maybe I should study how he does things. Napoleon Bonaparte said, Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I have founded empires, but on what do we rest the creation of our genius? Upon power, upon force. Jesus Christ founded his empire upon love, and at this hour, millions of men would die for him. It's interesting. Now you'll make the connection why millions would die for him when you get a little bit further into what we're talking about, because it's all about the service and all about the sacrifice. Jesus in leadership, clearly Jesus is worth investigating about leadership, but he didn't, interestingly, talk about leadership a lot. Have you noticed that? He didn't say, disciples, gather around, let me tell you how to be great leaders. Leadership 101. Make sure your sandals are just right and your tunics are on the right way. Look like a leader. He didn't do that, right?
I just did it.
He just did things.
Simply did it.
Right? I'm always nervous about politicians that talk about being a leader. Just, you'll tune into that when you see it. Like if a politician saying, well, I think the problem is here is that my opponent hasn't exercised leadership, but I'm a leader, right? Oh, run. That's almost always bad,
We're seeing
right?
that now.
Real great leaders don't tend to talk about it, they tend to just do, right? Jesus called them together and said, you know, the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many, as he's washing the disciples' feet,
Yep.
demonstrating what he wants them to do. Well, there's something powerful about that, right? Why?
Kind of like how children watch their mothers and fathers, and they tend to follow the lead when mom and dad are actually demonstrating something, such as oral hygiene.
Mhm.
Just one example that I've been going through with my son, getting him to do that. I'm
Okay.
demonstrating that.
But there's something even more there. For the rabbi to be doing that for his disciples is crazy countercultural.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, I mean, they could see serving him, but the other way around was, what? That's quite a shock. Power and authority from Max Weber. Power, he talks about it, you know, the dynamics there, and he's talking about power is essentially do it or else. We all understand that, right? This leads to the pyramid style of management. How many of you have been part of a pyramid style of management in an organization? I know you have, Maureen.
All of us,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you see the maladies in the pyramid style, or did you see it before you listened to this?
Oh,
Okay, you can
this
see
just
it,
spelled it out.
but he spelled it out really well,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? Okay, so the pyramid style looks like this, right? The generals are on top, the colonels, the majors, the captains, lieutenants, sergeants, corporals, all the way down to the privates. There's more privates. There's only very few generals at the top, and you know, rank has its privileges, right? Would you rather be a private or a general?
It depends on what you're capable of.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the capability. I'd rather be a general. It's just a better life,
Well,
right?
I know. it.
Okay. The pyramid does not work though. Why?
Because you're only trying to please your boss.
Right. Everyone at the lower ranks is looking up. The private's trying to please the corporal, who's trying to please the sergeant, trying to please the lieutenant, trying to please it, right? All the way up. Yeah.
And it's interesting, when we go back to Henry Ford, the person that's only gonna take orders isn't allowed to give their opinion, is probably not going to point out other things that may be wrong that could get people hurt, or this or that or
Yep.
that. Because they're only concerned about doing their job.
That's really interesting. So when I was going through my MBA, it was in the mid-90s. In the mid-90s, we were still fascinated with the Japanese, who had just kicked our butts for 20 years with auto manufacturing, right? And one of the things that kept coming up again and again was the Japanese auto manufacturing system. One of the great things that the Japanese did was they put a line where any employee could pull the line to stop pull the little lever to stop the manufacturer, shut it down at an instant. We would never trust any of our employees in American automobile corporations to do that. But the Japanese did. Why? Because it's far better to fix it right there and get it fixed and lose a little productivity than to have defect after defect after defect going out.
Yep.
Right?
And not stopping the line could create other problems that.
Well, but we didn't trust our employees to do it. That was the moral of the story. And the
Yeah.
Japanese figured that out.
Yep.
Continuous improvement.
Continuous
Yeah.
improvement,
Six Sigma.
Kanban, Six Sigma, Kaizen, all that stuff. Yeah. Okay, so everyone in the lower rank is looking to the higher ranks. Who are they trying to make happy?
Their boss.
Their boss. And so the problem is that everyone's looking up the food chain, trying to serve as the king or queen, and while they're looking at them, they're leaving out the customer, right? Who's supposed to be the one we're paying attention to? Your manager or the customer?
Yep.
Without the
But the
customer,
incentives
they're
are all
not
to
there.
please your boss, not to please the customer. Right? I mean, if it really came to a clash, who would you please? Your boss.
I like they said that means your bum's in their face.
Right. While everyone is looking up the food chain, trying to serve the king, they've got the rear to the end customer.
Yeah.
I was going to put a picture of that aside. Nah, let's just leave no image available.
It's interesting, probably all of us, how many times we've seen issues where a customer might start getting irate over something that a salesman or a representative in a store can't take care of that's so simple because that person.
Well, I don't have the authority to do that.
That's
How many times have you heard that? And then that just makes the person more angry, who demanding to see the manager or the manager's manager, and that's not going to fix anything. I mean,
That happened to us at Sam's just this weekend. We returned an item and it rang up for a different price than what was on the receipt. Rather than the cashier being able to override the price, and we clearly had the receipt of what we paid for it. She had to call the manager, so we had to stand there and the line continues to get longer while they wait for this manager.
other
to
customers
come
get
out,
more and more irate.
come and enter his code or her code, into the register so that she could change the price.
Now, why do we do that?
Just Sunday this happened. So.
Why do we do that?
Lack of trust.
Lack of trust, right?
That's
We don't
it.
trust that frontline employee to have the common sense to fix whatever the problem is. Maybe we're afraid that they're going to steal. I'm not afraid of the frontline employee. I'm afraid of the boss.
Right.
I mean, no, seriously. I mean, if you look at empirical studies, frontline employees, yeah, you want to make sure that they don't, steal nickel and dime stuff. But I mean, beyond that, really, the people that are going to do damage are higher up in the organization. The higher you are, the more damage you can cause.
Right.
Right? So, and how many times in your scenario have you seen the manager come over and swipe his card, not even look at the thing? Like he's pulled 3 different directions. Like he can't do whatever, and so he swipes it and goes off on his way. He's not even thinking about what are you doing. So
Right.
It doesn't work. It slows the process down. It screams distrust. Any other problems? Right? I mean, this is just bad all the way around. Empower them at least to some limit where they can be able to be useful. I mean, use your sense. Well, it says you're on the receipt, so I should be able to.
Yeah, just override the price or whatever button you gotta push back there to fix it, and just.
I understand you
Run
can't
away.
just totally give away the store, right?
Right,
You can't.
right.
But at a certain
But,
place,
You have a receipt and everything's right there.
Yeah, I don't think ever in AutoZone I've ever had the manager look at what they were doing. They just put
yeah, they come by and they go,
Swipe or,
Right.
like you said, enter the code or something.
I've been in that position though, and to me, in an auto parts store, being the guy that has to authorize something, it's because I trust them.
okay.
That's a positive anyway.
Yeah. So, but it's amazing what we do to screen distrust to our subordinates within the organization.
Yeah.
No, you can't, do this or you can't do that unless I get authorization. And how about get 6 authorizations up the chain in order to do what? And then what do you do when you do that? You discourage them from going out and taking that proactive step because they have to go through all the paperwork in order to get there. Go ahead.
I had an instance a few months ago where I was in a hurry at a grocery store and there weren't enough people and the lines were stopped up because people didn't have the authority to do something.
Yeah, sure.
I had to just walk away from a whole cart full of stuff
Yeah.
because of that.
So the pyramid corrupts. Okay, here's how it works. The mindset then is I'm, as an employee, looking up to please my boss, and my boss thinks it's his job to think for me. So now we're all out of line because now I can't think for myself. And he told me what to do. I guess I have to do what he told me to do, rather than that he's getting me from the neck up. The best definition of a manager I ever heard was somebody who meets the needs of their people, removes all the obstacles so they can serve the customer. Right. That's exactly right. That's path goal theory when you get to that in a different class. Path goal theory is I make the path, I equip you, and I make a path for you to follow to get out. That's it. Remove the obstacle so you can do your work. Not do it for you, not tell you how to do it, but remove the obstacle so you can work. Make sure you're equipped. Okay? The way it should be is something like this. You invert the pyramid. And he talked about inverting the pyramid, but here's a visual, the pyramid of responsibility. Now that frontline customer, he or she is serving that, frontline employee, and they're responsible, the supervisor saying, I'm responsible for my staff, and the middle management saying, I'm responsible for supervisors, and the upper management saying, I'm responsible for each of my department heads, and right, all the way down to the CEO, who's responsible for everybody. I don't think a lot of CEOs think, I'm responsible for everyone. They might think, oh, all this work I've got to do, but it's good to be king, right? A little different. But if you think in terms of that kind of responsibility, is this one really making sure that that one has what they need?
Yes.
They really need to be doing that all the way up.
That's kinda how-
Okay?
And you-
Power,
You
go
talk
ahead.
about removing obstacles and stuff, like at my work, there was a monthly report that I had to run.
Uh-huh.
And the data pool I have to execute comes from the accounting system, you have to have certain access to this transaction.
Uh-huh.
And I had to have somebody else in another accounting department literally, hey, can you run this for me, when I can do it myself?
Yeah.
And my boss is always like, you know, hey, let me know and we can remove the obstacle. And but anyways, ultimately I got access so I can, you know, run it myself. And
But what happens when you have the obstacles?
it's just
You do less of it,
Yeah.
right? So let's say you were going to do more of these type of things to be helpful. No, I can't do it, I guess.
And having access to this will help me, and it already has helped me analyze other issues.
Sure.
And when I normally would have to bug that other person in order to do that.
I'm sure they're happy to have you have that access so that they don't have to be pestered with
That's right.
what,
So
right?
they can continue doing their work.
So they can
on
do
it.
their work. We have to think through this, right? Because you don't want to run, you need to control the system, but you don't want to run so far into controls that now you're bogging it back down, right? You can be too loosey-goosey or too controlled. Power versus authority. Power is sometimes necessary, we all agree,
Yep.
right? Sometimes you just have to have that power and use it. Authority. Authority is a skill of getting people willingly to do your will because of your influence. I'm not exactly sure that I like the way that he phrased it, okay? But it is, getting people to willingly come aboard to whatever we've agreed on, okay? I'll do it for you. Authority is never bought or sold. Authority is about who you are as a person. Now, when we get here, he's really talking about leadership, not management, in a significant way. What a great line. My mother has no power over me, but she has a great deal of authority over me.
Yep.
Yes, she does. 84? Yes, she does. Absolutely. She has no power. Now, in my kids' world, remember when we had the hurricane not too long ago? So when we had the hurricane, we thought it was coming toward Charleston. And so I was like making my plans like, okay, where am I going? Am I going up to my in-laws and just above Charlotte? To actually turn toward there, so that wasn't going to work. But as we saw that that the hurricane wasn't coming here, I called my cousin and told him, hey, look, you want to come up here? He's in Florida, and he had to get out somewhere. And I said, well, it looks like it's turning. It's not coming to Charleston. You can come to see us. So my son is cleaning the playroom, and he asked me about him. Well, who's this? My cousin. Your cousin. So he said, I told him how we're related, so it makes sense to him because he'd never met this particular cousin. And he said, so how old is he? He said, he's 1 year younger than me. I said, oh, so you can tell him what to do. Now, in my 10-year-old son's world, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you're a year older, I mean, that's a pretty significant thing, and you can tell somebody what to do, right? No, I have no power over my cousin. I can't make him come to my house or not come. Well, I can make him not come legally, I guess, but, right? I have no power over him, but that's a different way of thinking. My mother has authority over me. She can, I would do a lot of things just by her word.
Me
Right?
too.
So there's a difference between that. Jesus had no power, but he had authority. Now he did have power too, but I mean, as far as making people do whatever, I'm not going to make it. He relinquished the power. It's interesting to me that he stands at the door of your heart and knocks. He doesn't kick it in. If anybody has the power to kick it in, he sure did, right? But he's a gentleman. He'll just knock. But he has authority. Power versus authority. Sacrifice is the universal language. It gets people's attention. Now, here's something that you probably didn't want to hear if you're an aspiring leader, is that it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
Right? Sacrifice is part of the process. Martin Luther King studied Gandhi. King was beaten, imprisoned, firebombed, assassinated ultimately. But he had moral authority where we weren't here last week because it was Martin Luther King's birthday. Right? What are we looking at?
Southern Alabama.
Soldiers using power.
Well, I think the state police.
Or police, yeah.
right? Bloody Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sheriff Clark saying, "You boys better break up this party or we'll be over there to bust your heads." The reply was, "You may beat us today, but we'll still love you." That's a hard thing to do.
Yes.
Again, I've not been in that situation, and I can tell that's a hard thing to do, right? A stunned nation watches the sacrifices that day, and within a year, King wins the Nobel Prize. Thurgood Marshall was appointed to the Supreme Court because the pictures went from this to that, and the nation watched and went, "Wait a minute, this isn't what we're all about. This isn't okay." Right? But it took that sacrifice in the process. Johnny Carson said there was one person we could never tell a joke about on the Tonight Show. Who was that?
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa. Why?
Just-
When you've sacrificed everything to take care of the poorest of the poor, like that's like your whole gig,
Right.
right? That's something, right? Where did Mother Teresa get her authority? Service and sacrifice. It's not power. Authority is derived from service and sacrifice, not from power. Do that with your people. See how that works. Spend time with them. Get to know them. Get to figure out what they need and equip them with it. You'll have a lot more power than if you're trying to give out edicts. Relationships with the CEOs. Customers, employees, owners, and significant others. That's what he means by CEOs as an acronym. All business is a series of relationships. I think you said that in your paper, something about leadership is about relationships, right?
Yeah.
Okay? All business is a series of relationships. Right. Now, couple that with the next line. Power destroys relationships. I think it does. Anybody seen this? How have you seen power destroy relationships?
I'll even look back to my childhood.
Okay?
I pretended that I had a relationship with my dad.
Okay? Because he was going to be powerful
It
and
was
dominant.
always that way, and where I'm going with this one is I've learned this with my son, even though sometimes I might have to use power, that I'll use influence and I'll serve him, I'll do things with him, and then all of a sudden I don't have to use force to get him to do things. He'll listen to me
Right?
a lot more anyway.
How many of you, who else has experienced that power destroys relationships?
I had a manager,
A manager?
and he absolutely required that you liked him. And no one liked him because of that. I mean, he
Did
just,
you have to sign a contract, or how does that?
he would just absolutely, like,
Same
he would do things in favor of, but on the same hand, you knew he didn't have your back, like we talked about the first week.
Sure,
You knew he would go behind your back and do things that would put you in a bad spot,
sure.
throw you under the bus.
So he's undermining the most fundamental thing about leadership is that I need to know that you care and will take care of me. And then wants you to like me.
But when you're at work, you better, if someone asked, you better like him, or you would be fired. You know, I mean, it was just,
Oh my goodness.
oh, the dude was
I wonder-
interesting.
I wonder how
Interesting.
much subtle sabotaging and things went on.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. Who else? How have you seen power destroy relationships?
I feel like I hear about it all the time in romantic relationships when people abuse each other.
That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
In abusive homes, where usually it's the man who has power over the woman, and the
Mhm.
woman feels powerless, and it's
Mhm.
not much love there, and that just destroys relationships.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome as an insight. Not awesome, good.
Exactly.
That's
We know-
awesome
we know
bad.
what you mean. It's a
Yeah.
good.
Good insight.
Good scenario, good.
What about
Okay.
global right
I
now?
just don't want to be taken out of context. Yeah, power destroys relationships. That's awesome. Okay.
Our global relationships right now,
Mhm.
because of the power struggles that are going on,
Okay.
are destroying relationships
Okay.
that have been around for years.
Okay. What else? Go ahead.
All I can say is I look back through so many experiences where a leader was just a power player, and what accompanies that is absenteeism, deviance, you name it.
So, but power doesn't have to do that.
No, it
See,
doesn't.
power can be lightly held,
Yeah,
right? And if it's lightly held, if it's not used or inflicted or used to threaten you, to make you do your will, because another quote in your paper was about how equality and respect were part of the package, right?
Mhm.
So even if you have power, if you put it over on the shelf and then you deal with other people with respect and equality, it still doesn't cause the same damaging stuff.
No.
It's only when you pick it up and beat people with it. Right?
Right.
Anybody else?
Can I say
Good.
a Spider-Man quote? Great power comes great responsibility.
That's not Spider-Man, that's his uncle,
Yeah, his Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben, that's right. With great power comes great responsibility. Okay, relationships. Herb Kelleher, CEO at Southwest Airlines. He writes to his employees, "Dear Southwest employee, looks like we're going to lose money this quarter due to an aviation fuel price spikes. I need you to save $5 per day. Love, Herb."
That's awesome.
Yep.
And then
That's pretty
Southwest
incredible.
cut 6% out of their operations that quarter.
Yep.
So at your place of business, what would happen if your boss wrote you that letter? Go ahead.
Can I just tell you, this is ironic because at the first of the year, Wes made all of us sign a memorandum of understanding
Uh-huh.
stating that if the agency lost revenue next year, all of our pay would be decreased.
Wow.
He required everyone to sign it.
Okay, and of course you got the upside too, right?
No, there was no upside mentioned on the memorandum, which I questioned.
So
Do it or else.
does that make you think that he cares about you as a leader?
So here's how he did it. He gave everyone a raise
Mm-hmm.
and then had them sign this form so that their pay increased for this year. But his expenses go up if he's increased everyone's pay, so if we don't more than double what we made last year, we're gonna lose money. So everyone's pay is gonna go back down next year.
So as of next year, it won't affect you this year?
Right, this year he put into effect.
So you'll have mass attrition in December?
Yep.
I mean, doesn't that stand to
Yeah,
reason? If
it
something
sounds
goes
like it.
wrong, I'd jump ship too.
That's right.
I can see a lot of
Wow.
cutthroat action coming.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I'll have to send you a copy of it.
So how would this work in your organizations? We know how to work at hers. If your boss said, hey, it looks like we're gonna lose some money this quarter, can you save $5 per day? Love, your boss's name.
In a majority of the cases, I would have said, like in the disc, yeah, whatever, and
Yeah.
throw it up in the trash.
That's right. More often than not, you'd probably see that. Why?
Because of just kind of like what she was talking about, how I can see that the organization really is just gonna spit you out when it doesn't need you again.
Mm-hmm.
It's not normal to use love in leadership.
Yeah, but that's Herb, right?
No, I'm saying that.
And Herb actually did
Yeah.
demonstrate that he cared too.
Yep,
How?
through his actions all the time. Go
Yeah,
out and
showing
do
up
it.
on holidays to do the baggage thing and,
Baggage, yeah.
right? I mean, all kinds of ways that he demonstrated that he was in there with them. Now, when your boss does that to demonstrate that for you, you return it. If he doesn't, maybe you do, maybe you don't.
He wasn't
Maybe you drag your
selective.
feet.
He wasn't selective of who he sent it to either. He sent
Right,
it to
you said it to all. So again, I ask, what would happen in your organization?
Well, first I gotta have a relationship with my boss. I've been there 7 months and he knows absolutely nothing about me other than.
And that gives you warm fuzzies.
Yeah.
Oh, he cares
other than
enough
what's on my
to not know
resume,
me.
He doesn't know me at all.
Yeah.
I just
That's
find it
unfortunate.
unbelievable. I'm just like amazed,
We're not stupid.
you know. I'm
Yeah,
just amazed.
and it's amazing how.
It bugs me though, it's like I wanna come and pull him and say, dude, we need to like have a sit down and establish more of a relationship, or something. It's like I wanna like, do, just,
But
I understand.
I'm just flabbergasted.
Anybody else?
Surprised.
A couple of you didn't answer. Trying not to.
I mean, well, like him, I know I work in finance at Spayware, a huge organization. And I mean, we're a pretty close-knit group and all the bosses in finance seem to know each other, but you hear about some people they work on different projects and stuff, especially newer folks. Like when I was a new professional at Spayware, you got to know a lot of the younger people because you go to all these meetings with them. And they're like, hey, who's your boss? I don't even know. That's what a lot of them would say. They don't even know who their boss is. So,
That's interesting.
yeah.
And this is,
Okay, taking responsibility, boarding a plane at Southwest Airlines. Welcome to my airplane. Ever fly in Southwest?
yes, a lot.
Southwest is an interesting deal. Like,
I never have.
Uh,
Yeah, it is.
Never have.
Yeah, before.
You
I
line
found
up,
it
there's no
interesting.
first class.
What's that?
There's no first
Yeah, there's no
class?
first class. It's the only time that I want to get on the plane sooner so I can pick my seat,
Yep,
rather than, because I'm always waiting until I want to be the second to last person on the
Yeah,
plane, because I don't want to be left.
yep.
But I don't understand why people want to get on first, because, like, what, so you can sit there and
Get hit by the
be
bikes.
more
And get-
more
yeah,
uncomfortable
yeah,
longer? I don't know.
everybody
Anyway,
walks by.
so the stewardess here, I'm not surprised, because the stewardess on the Southwest planes that I've been on, who was joking around and having a good time and that kind of thing, I was like, oh, that's cool, right? So this didn't surprise me at all. The stewardess, would you like me to help you sell that candy? Now that was against protocol, but, and then she was saying, candy's $3 a piece. I want to know who's going to be the first crabby person not to buy one.
That was amazing.
Yeah, right? And then a bidding war ensued.
Yep.
Now, the awesome part of this, to my mind, is that people will tell this story, and tell this story, and tell this story. I think that's great publicity.
He told the story and I heard it.
That's right.
I've
I mean-
never thought about Southwest Airlines like that before.
Yeah, man, I hadn't either.
It's interesting when you think about that too, because okay, there's a rule, they can't do that, and it'd be pretty easy to explain to a boss, hey.
Oh,
this may
I'm
go-
sorry, son. I can't do that. Please pack that up, right?
Then it'd be easy to explain to your boss that you just made everybody happy on that plane, your customers.
And then those 150 people told all
Yeah,
their
sure.
friends, so next thing you know, more business for Southwest. I mean,
And it didn't cost us a thing.
Now, on the other side of that, the flip side, how's Detroit doing these days? Right? Taking responsibility. As a consultant to the auto industry, the CEO thought that the problem was the forklift driver handing out the union cards. Nope, he's not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. What does he mean? Dawned on me that problem was leadership. I was focusing on the symptoms, not the problem. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Kids acting out, look at the parents. So what's that tell you? If your workers are demotivated or dissatisfied or living for the weekends?
Their mind is not in the work.
Lazy workers, right? They
Oh,
must
yeah.
they must just be bad apples.
When it's a symptom.
When it's a symptom, it's a reflection
Leadership.
of leadership. What's management doing? I bet you they're doing something to disempower or make it drudgery. I can't prove that, and it may not be in every case, but in most cases, those two things tend to be tied together. There are no weak platoons, only weak leaders, said George Patton. That's interesting. Show me any group of 2 or more people who are gathered together for any issue who are struggling, and 9 times out of 10, it's a leadership issue. I can't say that it's exactly 9 times out of 10, but I can say, yeah, that rings true, that it's very often leadership if there's a group struggling. Right? This has been your experience?
Obstacle in the way that's not been removed or.
There's no leadership, everybody's at odds, or the leadership's dictatorial, or whatever. Not always, but very often that's the case. So the ultimate test of your leadership is this: when people leave, are they better than when they got there? Why does he call that the ultimate test of your leadership?
Did you prepare others to be good leaders? Did you teach them? Were you a good example? for
Well,
them?
yeah, but we were successful. Look at the bottom line. We got this done.
It changed.
And then you walk out and all of a sudden it starts tanking.
Yeah, so look at your churn rate. How many people have come and gone from your organization in the process? That'll tell you. How engaged are they when you're not around? Right? I mean, sure, if they're engaged when you're around, they don't want to look bad, but how engaged are they the rest of the time?
Kind of like his story about the boss requiring that they like him.
That's amazing. I'm going to use that in future classes. That's crazy.
Oh, he lives down the road from me. We could have him come in and speak so we could understand how.
Have them come in and speak on leadership?
Yes.
Holy cow, that's funny.
He is a bad person. I mean, he's just a bad person.
I'm half tempted. I'm not going to do that, I don't think. That would be something, especially if the whole room knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I had-
So, I'm sorry, you were about to say?
When I had some positions in the Air Force as I moved up the ranks, so to speak, I had a motto of my own, or a phrase. I don't know if I picked it up from somewhere else, but I always wanted to train my replacement.
Okay.
Leave the place better than when I found it.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
You know, when it came.
And you
to-
should want to do that.
That was one of my mottos that I used over the years.
Make sure that several people can take your spot if you get
Right.
killed.
Exactly.
That's a more gruesome way of saying it.
But
Okay?
it's true.
Marines,
The question is
But-
not,
But it's true.
look, if you're in any position of leadership, the question is not whether you are a leader, it's whether you're going to have an effect or not, or a positive effect or not, right? Anytime you're in a position of leadership, you are being watched. You are on stage, you're in a fishbowl. That's just the reality. You are on, and people will watch you and see if you're the genuine article, and if they're not, they'll make up their minds about how they're going to deal with you. And it's not going to be the way that you want them to deal with you. They're not going to always like you. I put this picture of a manager here because I've never, ever seen somebody use their title and say, well, because I'm the manager, that's why, and it'd be a good thing,
agreed.
right?
Agreed.
If you have to say, because I'm the fill in the blank of whatever title it is that should make you bend to my will because I'm not winning the argument, that's always bad. I've never seen that be a positive
It
thing.
says you have no influence.
Yeah, it means you've already been defeated and this is your last trump card. That's what it means. Your leadership, any time that you have to exercise power as a leader, that's a bad day. Now, you were Marine, Air Force?
Air Force.
Were you
Army.
Army?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was only in Army ROTC for 2 years until Clinton's military cutbacks killed my program, but I'm not bitter. But in that short period of time, I learned one really valuable thing. I learned a number of valuable things, but one really valuable thing that stuck with me was they were telling us, look, if you have to give a command, you failed.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. If I have to order you to do something as opposed to have influence that's going to be done, I failed. What, you're shaking your head?
I'm just thinking I never had to do anything like that in the Air Force either. I never had to order somebody, you will do this because I say so or because.
Yeah. If you
whatever.
get to that point, you have failed.
Yeah, it really
I
does.
thought, wow, that's really interesting. Why? Because when you watch movies all the time, what you see is
Yeah.
the dramatic, I order you scene, right? I do this against my will and protest, right? And that kind of thing. And but if you get to that point, that's a failure.
I loved how they broke it down, how they had the power move when you're in basic, but then you move on to your units.
Mhm.
And at that point, it becomes more of a servant type.
Of a team as opposed to being
Yeah.
drilled.
Yes.
Right.
I like, that was because at that point you'd burn out.
Yeah.
If you continue.
Because you can't do that for 4
Yeah.
years,
No.
No.
right?
That was
the
pretty
drill
good.
sergeant screaming at you.
That was
Boy,
neat to
that was
think of.
eye-opening. I
Separated
remember
from
that.
your individuality and habits.
Yeah.
Okay? So, anytime that you have to exercise power as a leader, that's a bad day. Why? Because my authority is broken down and I had to rely on power. And what do we know about power? It destroys relationships. And what is leadership? Leadership is relationship. Right? Have you ever experienced this where you're around the boss and you're just uncomfortable? He didn't even do anything, but just knowing that he's the
yeah.
boss, you're kind of a little like jittery. Right? You ever experienced that?
Oh, I mean.
That's power talking. That's because you know that there could be consequences to you that it doesn't flow the other way.
It's,
Right?
it's even worse in situations that I've been in, all the way down to knowing what makes the person tick and knowing exactly how to say this to convey that when it's not true, just to get the person to do whatever it is.
Oh, how to gently massage the
I
boss.
hate to say it, but
Yeah.
I learned to manipulate everybody in power if I had.
Yeah,
to.
now that's really interesting because now if you feel like you have to do that, is he getting truth?
Nope.
No. What does he need to operate right? He needs to see truth,
Yep.
right? And if you can't speak truth because the power is preventing you from speaking truth to him, he's just blinded himself. Now, some people like that because they want you just to do what they have to say, but they've really cut themselves off from all kinds of resources that they could otherwise have. We build authority through service and sacrifice. Again, same thing as we were talking about before. Your leadership will never be defined by what you accomplish. It's always defined by what you get done through other people. Get them what they need and they'll make you look great. I have found that to be true. If you take care of your people take care of you. Now, that's not always, that's not 100%, but in general, to the degree that you go out taking care of them, they'll take care of you. You found that to be true?
Yep.
Roughly 10% will not respond to your authority and they will work against you. Okay, so there are some people who just won't get it. Your hard-headedness of earlier life, for example, sure, some people just won't get it. Tough love says, I love you, I will miss you, but you have to go. Why? Because the rest of the organization needs you to take that line. Now, I don't mean just because you don't like me. That's different with your boss, with the guy that doesn't, you have to like me or else. I do mean if you're not, so if we're in an organization, we're in an organized way moving toward a particular objective, and if somebody's determined on going the other direction, it's not gonna work,
Can't work.
right?
Yeah.
So if they're just heck bent on doing that, that's a different scenario. I love you, I'll miss you, you have to go. But don't focus on that 10%. The problem is that we write the rules for that small group of people. And then we create huge rule books of you may not do this, you may not do that, you may not do this, and we're bound down with the change of those rules.
They cripple the 90%.
That's right. The people that are trying to do their job more effectively. And so you have 6 signature blocks on trying to do something that's going to cost you $50. Why? Well, because somebody 12 years ago violated that. Okay. But how much lost productivity was there because of that rule? I mean, so we got to be careful. We write our policies and procedures for that 10% who shouldn't be there anyway. Get them out. So leadership is built on what?
Trust.
Okay, it's built on authority,
Authority,
right?
yes.
Which is built on what?
Character.
Close? Think Mother Teresa. Think Martin Luther King.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice and service,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
built on what? Ultimately.
Love.
There we go.
Oh.
Look at that. Hey, he's a smart one. Right. So leadership is built on authority, built on service and sacrifice, built on love. Have you ever been taught that before? I mean, other than what you were listening to this past week in the servant leadership training course? No. But that's right. That's it. It's not about, hey, how do I climb this mountain to be on top and tell people what to do? It's not that at all. Right? It's how do I give more of myself and sacrifice? And then naturally, because I love these people. Go ahead.
Minivan.
No, go
I
ahead.
hear people all the time, they're saying, I could be a good leader or manager,
Uh-huh.
normally it's a statement, if I had the authority
Uh-huh.
given to me by the boss.
Uh-huh.
But the actual authority is given to you by the people that you're serving.
That's right.
And the boss.
There's a great quote. I'm trying to remember what it was. Sergeant Major of the Army. I don't remember which one. I can find it if I look. But he said something to the effect of that your leadership is ratified by your people. That's right. Your leader. I mean, your position is appointed, but your leadership, which is a different thing, right? Will they really follow you wholeheartedly? Not because you told them that they had to. This is ratified by your people, right? And it's ratified because they see this because of that, which flows from that. If you get those things in order, it'll all work. If you don't, well, then you have a problem. Well, why are these people so lazy? If you're asking why your people are lazy, look in the mirror, right? Because you're doing something here that's causing that. Leadership is love. Hunter resisted using the word love in his seminars. He said, I could not leave the word love out and be intellectually honest.
Yep.
Right? It was so much like that he couldn't leave it out. Love is seeking the greatest good of other people. Love is a verb first, and it's the act of extending yourself for others by identifying and meeting their legitimate needs and seeking their greatest good. Our actions betray what we believe. So if you actually believe this, you'll act in such a way that you'll take care of them, make sure that they have what they need, make sure that they're taken care of. Right? Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it's not rude, it does not dishonor others, not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it does not keep records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth, always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. If that was your boss, how would you feel?
Great.
Yeah. How do you actually feel? Maybe not so great?
There's at least some room for improvement.
Yeah, well, maybe there's some room for improvement over that. Leadership is love. Those were the words I've been teaching in my leadership classes for 10 years. Patience and kindness and humility and respect and honesty and accountability, selflessness and commitment and being the best you can be. Notice there were no feelings on the list. Right? But there was these actions and these character traits. Patience is to show self-control or impulse control. So here, are you under control as a leader? I've seen some good leaders and some bad leaders, and I think the most scary ones were the ones that were personally not under control themselves.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing to watch. You kick a baby over because she can't walk yet? Bad baby, you can't walk. Right? No, you don't do that. But why do we do that to employees that are trying to do the right thing, but they screwed up something and now you're just, well, why did you do that? Bad. Well, are they going to take risks after that?
No.
Of course not. Well, they just learned they get kicked if they,
Back, okay,
if
what
they
do you want me
topple
to do?
over.
You tell me what you wanna do.
Yeah, and that's it. Say it again. Go ahead.
You tell me what you want me to do then.
That's
How
right.
you want me to do
Give
it?
me your 3-page checklist, Dr. Curtis, and I will do your
I've seen
presentation
that. I've
exactly
seen that.
like you said.
Right.
Right? Go ahead.
Even worse yet in these situations where some leaders will throw these derogatory, self-fulfilling prophecies out there.
Like?
Oh, he ain't gonna do nothing.
Yep.
And I've been on the
Oh, you don't
receiving
think I
end-
can, huh?
I've been on the receiving end of that, and I'd say in my head, yep, I'm not gonna do a thing.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Mm,
A lot of people have that same story,
yeah.
right? Remember, leadership is messing with people's lives. It is. I mean, it's messing with things that are very important. And so for them to do that, that's terrible. Bosses that do that when an employee takes a risk learn that it's not safe and they no longer take risks. Well, I mean, incentives matter. Why would you? Anybody experience that?
Oh, yeah.
If the leader's not in control, it becomes danger to others. Right?
Yes.
And what do we need most? We need most to know that you're safe and that you're looking to take care of us. How about patience? When's the last time that you raged at your boss? Anybody? Anybody ever has anybody ever seen a boss scream at a subordinate?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's not a pretty picture. You ever seen that? Have you seen a subordinate scream at a boss? That's a little bit more rare.
Yep,
You have?
yep.
Was he still there? Or was he fired shortly thereafter?
Well, this was back in the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay, that might be a little bit different. It's a bit of a different environment.
The typical thing where the leader steps outside of his authority and has lost all influence and then starts screaming at a Marine that doesn't give a you-know-what about it, and the Marine just lets him have it back.
Okay, that's a little bit different. But generally, you don't see the subordinate yelling at the boss,
Yeah,
right?
The I like you, boss.
The I like you boss?
He would, some people that he liked a lot would scream back at him.
But that's because it was safe.
How about passive aggressiveness instead?
Yeah, and so what you do is you become passive aggressive, right? You
Yeah.
don't tend to scream. You rarely will you see the employee scream at the boss and treat them brutally and disrespectfully. Why? Because they know they're going to be fired.
We need to be
Yeah.
covert about our.
But the boss very often feels, hey, it's okay. I can let go and have no manners and be disrespectful. Why? Because it's safe
He
for
doesn't
him.
feel threatened by those.
I've actually been that subordinate and yelled at my boss. It
Okay.
happened inside the Boeing plant here.
Okay.
We were having a meeting, I was working for one of the subcontractors, and we did a lot of the wiring repairs. And these guys have been working their behinds off, because there's more work than there is people and hours in the day to get it all done. And he kept harping on how much backlog of work that we had, and I finally had to stand up and say, look, we're getting everybody trained as fast as we can. We're doing the best we can with what we have, but there's only so much that these people can do because we've been running them in the ground. They get a 15-minute break and 30 minutes for lunch, and they're working 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
They have lives outside of this. You got to stop and think about all the people that are working for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kind of, got quiet for a minute. He didn't. No repercussions happened with me or not, but I was saying, because it was the leadership team or the management team for the company that was in there together. So we had the top boss and then the other 3 or 4 of us that were supervisors. And I just basically spoke up because I knew we were all thinking the same thing, but I just finally said it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not screaming.
Well, not really, but I was still.
You stepped
it
out
was,
there, though.
it was still, like you said, stepping out of that uncomfortable zone,
Uh-huh.
or area wasn't.
But that's speaking truth to power. That's what you were doing,
Right.
right?
So
Here, what we're
that's-
talking about is something different. You don't rage at your boss because the
Right.
power dynamics are such that that's not going to work,
Right.
right? Not if you want to stay there. He told that story about, you can't yell at the pastor, they got to yell at the umpire every week, and then the pastor
yeah.
became the umpire.
Softball.
And all of a sudden, he was able to stop.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You don't yell at the pastor.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Right.
Well, why can we control it with other people that we think are important, but not our employees, or spouse, or kids, or whatever else? You can control it, you really can. Now, if you don't control it, what's gonna happen if you're the manager and you don't control it? You will shut them up like a clam,
Yeah.
right? They're not gonna go the extra mile for you. Why would they? Kindness, to give attention, appreciation, encouragement, common courtesy. When's the last time that you had appreciated your boss? Now let's look at it the other way. Turns out bosses are people too, right? They're human, and they appreciate common kindness and courtesy, and being appreciated. Turns out bosses often have a lot more stress than they let on. And so that might be why things are spilling out, but it's also something maybe they're shielding you from.
Yep.
So when's the last time that you appreciated them? People have a need to be encouraged, and that doesn't stop with the boss. Okay, let's, when I was married, my mom told me, I'm only gonna give you one piece of advice, you better pay attention to your wife.
Yeah.
It's not bad advice.
Yeah.
Right? Turns out wives like being paid attention to.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you're paying attention, you show you are paying attention by how you listen. And listening is an attitude about people. That's a great line, that last one. Listening is an attitude about people.
Why is that the hardest one?
I'm sorry, what?
Why is that the hardest one?
I'm sorry,
That's your wife.
were you talking?
How about the scene in Dumb and Dumber where he's complaining that his woman left him and, oh, she said some crap about not listening or something? Well, what was it? I don't know, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is hard.
It
It
is.
really is. And I guess if you're comfortable or you're not really thinking, but you're just being honoring by listening. And I'd like to say I've done this as well or better than I have. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
But you're saying something about how much you value or respect a person by how you pay attention to them. So, at a funeral, don't say, I know how you feel. No, just say, the only thing you have to say is, I'm sorry about your loss. Don't make it about you, is what he's saying. And now extrapolate that into the workplace. Don't make it about you if you're the manager. No, it doesn't have to be about you. Let it be about that person. Don't shut down feelings before they get going. Sometimes we want to just put the kibosh on feelings because we're uncomfortable with it. No, let people be people. Bound by habits, William James said, could the young but realize how soon they will be mere walking bundles of habits, they would give more heed to their conduct while in the plastic state. We are spinning our own fates, good or evil, and never to be undone. Every smallest stroke of virtue or of vice leaves its never so little scar. Right? We talked about that earlier in here, right? The choices that we make, the small choices, they build up, they accumulate. Kindness, the soft skills, the soft stuff is the hard stuff. By comparison, management's a piece of cake. I say amen, right? Spreadsheets don't talk back. They don't, right? But people do. You don't hurt a spreadsheet's feelings.
Yeah.
But, that person might resent you forever, like that elementary school people I still don't like. Right? Leadership development is hard work. You don't become a better leader by reading a book. Now you can, but it's not just.
If you do something.
You have to do something with it, right? You have to get that as a framework in your head and then do something with it. MBAs try to impress others with what they know. That's not the way to go. What you want to do is we want to know if you care. I'm far more impressed with a manager who cares about me than one who knows a lot. Right? Kindness. Someone asked Drucker, what are good people skills? His reply, nothing more than good manners. Sure. Kindness is like the WD-40 of relationships. I remember reading this. I remember exactly where I was when I was listening to Drucker in an audiobook, driving down in front of Regent University, in front of the 7-Eleven, as I heard this and went, oh, yeah. And because I'm from New Jersey, right? Manners and politeness is not high on our list of things. But of course, yeah, it is true. Yeah, it really is. But of course, if this smooths business, smooths the transactions, why wouldn't you do it? Just little courtesies. It doesn't have to be hard. But for some reason, this was a revelation to me when I ran across that. Humility is being authentic and real. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Leadership is not about style, but about substance. And this, what a great line at the end, dictators are not comfortable with contrary opinion. Have you found that to be the case? I mean, if you're working for a boss who's a dictator, he will not be impressed with your opinion. That's not his opinion. He will be very impressed if you embraced his opinion and think it's the smartest thing ever. And then he'll think very, very highly of you for a short period of time until you contradict him. Respect. Go ahead.
That's the knowing how to manipulate those people.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they kind of induce the manipulation of their subordinates of them. Does that make sense?
Even more covert aggression is when you see that he's saying something or has an idea that's gonna lead to disaster, but you agree with him knowing it's gonna happen.
Yep, and then you have the meeting after the meeting where you say, can you believe this guy? This is not going to work at all. Respect is treating people like they're important. Why? Because they are. Turns out. They are. They actually are. So treat them that way. You can judge the character of a person by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. Look for that. If people treat people who are weak or can't do anything positive for them well, kindly, there's something going on right there. If they treat them like dirt, beware. That's a really clear sign.
Watch how somebody.
Those things are very highly correlated to other bad things that they'll do. Sam Walton talked about if you want to ruin your business, just treat your employees with disrespect because they'll take it out on your customers. Sure, just it rolls downhill. I'm not going to say what rolls downhill, but it rolls downhill. The pronoun, it's pretty safe and tame, right? And who gets treated badly all the way down the line to your customers. Selflessness is my willingness to extend myself for you, to subordinate my stuff for a greater good. Right? It's the leader's responsibility to put other people first. In fact, United States Marine Corps General George Flynn said the cost of leadership is self-interest. What a great line. That's right. If you're going to lead others, you have to set your own stuff aside. Forgiveness. It's important because when you're a leader, people are going to dump on you. People are going to want whatever they see, the perks that they perceive that you have. They're going to stab you in the back. They're going to talk bad about you, all those kind of things. So you have to forgive them or you're going to be consumed by it. That resentment will destroy you. Honesty, to be free from deceptive behavior. And that's more than just not telling lies. It's telling the whole truth. Silence can be a lie. That manipulation of agreement can be a lie. Right? If you're not holding people accountable, I would call you, this is Hunter talking, I would call you a thief and a liar. Now this is really hard for my management students, my MBAs, my MAs. This is really hard when you're evaluating each other at the end of the semester to tell the truth. Right? Because we all want to have great grades and kumbaya, right? But some people don't deserve that. They really don't. And if you give that person 100, what are you saying about the person who really deserves the 100? Right? Tell the truth. If that person deserves a 6, I'll stand by your 6. If you all think that she's done such a terrible job, she won't. That's why I'm pointing at her. If you all think that she's done such a terrible job that she deserves a 6 out of 100, I will stand by. If you all say 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, she deserves a 6, I'll stand by that and give her a 6 on her evaluation. It's your evaluation of each other, right? Because if that's the truth, that's what you ought to have. Go ahead.
Another aspect of it too is if you don't give them what they deserve, then it's unethical
Sure.
to the next person that's making.
That's right. It's
decisions.
unethical to the person that actually did really pull all his weight and got 100.
Or where I was really going is the next person that's making decisions, whether to promote or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Has false information.
That's
That's exactly right. Yep. You're a thief because you're taking a paycheck from the corporation while not being honest because you're pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Now, Hunter calls this process of being truthful hugging and spanking. I cringe when I hear him talking in those terms because in this day and age, you know, I mean, even this was only like 10 years ago when he recorded this, but in this day and age, I mean, I don't want to, use that terminology. But think about the honesty involved. So they talked about the Jack Welch's interview with Leslie Stahl, where she's saying, Jack Welch, how can you say that GE is a kinder, better company when you're cutting the bottom 10% of your workers every year? Stop. One, the workers know that, right? They know that the bottom 10% get pruned every year. This is part of the deal. Okay, that's how it works at GE, and everybody knows that. Welch says, Leslie, the best thing you can do for an employee as soon as you know that they're on the bottom 10% is to let them know so they can get on and adjust their lives and get themselves into the right game. That's my view. It's a kinder, gentler company than the company that winks at truth.
Right.
What do you think?
Yep.
I agree.
You're
There's
doing
some-
a service for that person as well as your shareholders.
Now, you don't necessarily need to kill them the next day, but hey, get your things in order, start making your plans of where you're going to go, because you're going to go. Okay? Leslie, let me tell you what cruelty is. Cruelty is waiting until somebody is 50 years old with a family and a mortgage, 3 kids in college, and a 30-year stack of performance reviews that say he's wonderful. And then the performance culture arrives and tells him, you've got to go. Leslie, that's cruelty. It's the most common form of cruelty in business. It's just what you were just describing.
Yeah. It's the same thing as not disciplining your children and setting them up for failure as adults.
And so I just had that discussion with with one of my children who, look, well, the reason that when we're talking about something silly like swiping cookies or something, I mean, right? So what would happen to you if you did this from the store, right? What would happen to you? So they would put handcuffs on you and put you somewhere and then have us come get you. Right? I don't know that they take you to jail necessarily, but maybe they would, or some kid's detention place or something, and until we come to get you. Now, you probably wouldn't be in jail, but what happens if you're an adult and you do that? Then they put the handcuffs on you and put you in jail. Right? So there are greater and greater consequences the further you get. So it's a kindness. So my daughter was arguing that, well, she should be let off the hook because these cookies are in the house and it's a temptation.
Oh, how about that?
Quite a way to argue, huh? And I'm saying, look, you have to practice this self-control in this environment, because if you don't later on, that's going to become a problem,
Yeah.
right? In fact, I should get more cookies. I even told her that. I should put more cookies in here to make you more self-control. Anyway, she wasn't buying that part. There's this interesting book, The 5 Temptations of a CEO. Patrick Lencioni was talking about this, where here we've just been talking about this cruelty of not telling the truth. And the CEO in the story, he knows that I guess this is his marketing guy or something isn't really working out, and he does nothing and does nothing and does nothing, and then he hasn't worked out for 6 months, walks in and fires him, and he's off. And so there was this dialogue where they're talking about it, and he says, well, so when you fired him, did you tell him about it ahead of time? Oh, no, I wouldn't want him to worry about it.
No
Right?
progressive
No,
discipline.
what you're doing is you're being a coward, because you're saying, I don't want to have to take the heat for that bad relationship that might form, but I don't want to be truthful and tell him what he needs to know to save his skin, because he might feel bad toward me. But I'm more than willing to sever the relationship completely and then not have to worry about it.
Shows
And can
how-
you say chicken?
Shows how little he
Yeah.
cares about others.
That's right, and that was exactly the point in the book.
No
That
action.
you don't actually care about the person. Well, I gave him a chance. No, you don't. You didn't really care about the person, because if you did, you would have helped him correct it along the way, or at least know that he needs to do that. Honesty. The first thing we need to make first we need to make the standards clear. So he gives this example. Would it have been effective if your coach at the end of the season said, at the end of game 2, you would have just moved over a few feet? That you would have been positioned well. Would that have worked? Why do we do this, though? We do this all the time. In school, we do this at the end of the semester. In work, we do this at your annual performance review. Hey, you've kind of stunk all year. Really? You shouldn't be surprised in the performance review, and it shouldn't be annual. It should be much more regular than that, or at least informally regular, right? So that you know how to stay on track. But what good does it do me if 8 months from now you tell me that I was awful 8 months ago?
When you won't remember a thing.
Yeah, why?
Why didn't you say something?
So we need to be honest about it, and it needs to be regular and timely. Discipline comes from the same root word as disciple, to teach and to train. You have to be totally honest, authentic, and committed. And the number one gap for managers, between where they need to be and where they are is in holding people accountable. That is my observation in 10 years, 12 years of teaching MBA students, is that you guys have a terrible time holding each other accountable. It's uncomfortable, so you don't want to do it, so you all want to give everybody else 10s. Yay, we're all 10s. I didn't rock the vote. Nobody's upset with me. Go ahead.
The opposite extreme in my bachelor program, undergrad program, I had problems with being too direct and too harsh.
That's hard to believe.
It's
Just being honest.
I'm just kidding.
Either way, just being honest.
Honesty, when you don't hold people accountable, who benefits?
No one.
Nobody.
No, there is somebody.
You.
It's not the employee, it's not the company. That's the right answer. It's not the best people, it's just you. You don't have to take the heat and avoid the hassle, right? You get to, right? Everybody else pays the price for your being a chicken.
I got a comment on
Go ahead.
this, because I've been pretty honest the majority of my life, maybe not when I was a lot younger, but I gave an honest feedback at an exit interview, through the Excel sheet that they used as their document for a previous employer when I left them. And then since...
Did they retaliate?
Well, I think they did, but they didn't, but I can't prove anything, because I had then got laid off by the company that I went to work for, and that same company that I worked for, I was willing, wanted to go back. They had positions open that I'm 100% qualified for, but chirp, nothing, submit. So honesty is the best policy, so to speak, but I guess it depends on the situation. I felt
there's a way to
good
be
leaving the comments that I did. I wasn't, overly dramatic. I was just, there were some problems that I wanted to identify that nobody would ever listen to, so I put it on my exit.
So let's say that is how that went down.
Right.
Where do you think the problem is? Was it with your honesty? How do you think the leaders interpreted that? The leaders who are running that awesome place
Right.
because they're in charge and see how awesome we are. How do you think they interpret it?
It's like it too much.
That's disloyal, and that's
Yeah.
how could you say that? What's wrong with it, right?
Right.
People are weird.
How could you hurt my feelings by being honest with me?
Yeah,
Right.
they might not have said it that clearly, but
Right.
Even though that's the point of an exit interview.
yes, that's a good leader should want to know
Bridges.
exactly what you said.
But I learned my lesson. I'll never do that again, honest or dishonest, because life goes on, and there are certain decisions you have to make at certain points. So I can't say never. That's not the right way to say it either.
But that's tragic though, because
It's
as he
sad, I
said,
think. I
that's
think it's
exactly what
sad.
you're supposed to. This is
Right.
their prime
They can't
opportunity
correct it.
to learn.
Unless they get the honest feedback that they need.
I know a number of people who, when they left organizations, were just tight-lipped about it. It's telling me, well, what good was it going to do to say anything,
Right.
right?
Right.
They're probably the most honest people, the people who aren't working there anymore.
Right.
So,
Right, because they don't have
great
to
information.
bend for that reason. That's right.
We're taught all of our life not to be a tattletale from the time we start, from the time we're small up. Don't be a tattletale. Don't be a tattletale.
Right.
When you're with your brothers and sisters. Your parents just don't want to hear it, so they're saying, don't be a tattletale.
That's true.
I'm not sure this is the same thing.
Well, I think
But-
sometimes that relates.
Honesty is a tough
It's-
subject.
I don't want to be
Yeah.
a tattletale because it's
No.
not, that's not the way to handle it. I'm not supposed to tell on you for something you did or didn't do. I think society-wide, a lot of times we are trained to not tell.
Yeah, to mind your own business.
Yeah.
Right,
eyes
but
forward.
to Kevin's point, this is the prime opportunity to find out if something's wrong,
Yeah, I agree.
right? Go ahead.
Being on the receiving end of things from people and surveys and all, I saw that as an opportunity to discuss that with everybody in a productive manner. It goes a long ways when you're actually discussing it and doing something productive with it.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's where I'm going, and that was the problem.
And that's what you're trying, that's what you hope to get out of it, is something productive.
I think you need to know your audience though when you do stuff like that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
and that's why the people that told me that they weren't gonna say anything when they were leaving, said, what good's it gonna do? Because
They know their audience.
if they weren't gonna listen, why were they gonna inflame things? which is a shame. And that right there tells you as much about the leaders in the organization as anything else,
Yes, sir.
right?
I got more stuff.
Commitment, the final quality. Breakfast, the chicken was involved, the pig was committed. I'm not sure I care for that analogy, but the pig certainly was committed.
Yeah.
Commitment is about sticking to your choices. People want to be a servant leader until they get pushback, and then they quit. But wait a minute, leadership is about sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? It's built on sacrifice. It's built on love. I mean, so it's not just about, oh, they're pushing back. Well, is it the right thing? I mean, do you quit for your kids? Who has kids other than me? 1, 2, 3. Okay, right. So, but you gotta. I mean, would you just? Oh, my kids. They complained about having to do their homework. I don't want to feel hurt. I'm not going to make them do it. No, right? No, you have to learn things. Right? If you really care, you're going to actually take whatever that pushback is. Right? You must have a commitment to excellence. Love this quote. Absolutely love it. Commitment. Morale exists when the soldier thinks that his army is the best in the world, that his regiment is the best in the army, that his company is the best in the regiment, that his squad is the best in the company, and that he himself is the best in the outfit. You don't have a morale problem if people are chasing excellence like that, right? You have a morale problem when people are ill-equipped and under-led and they don't have resources and whatever else. But you don't have a morale problem there. Think these guys have morale problems?
Well, Tom Brady, with the Patriots.
Patriots.
Yeah.
Well, they should have a morale problem next week after the Super Bowl, I hope.
I just can't believe the Eagles.
Well, I'm not an Eagles fan, but I hope.
That's just amazing.
Okay, so these guys on the board, back to the Tom Brady. You think they have morale problems?
No.
No. I mean, they have other problems, like some really dangerous work, but they don't have morale issues, right? Excellence dispels morale, or morale issues, right? Commitment, intentions minus actions equals squat. So you can think, didn't he say something like, honey, I intended to stop by and get you roses? Was that in here?
Yes,
Right?
I think that was
But
it.
And then I didn't do it, but then I kept going, right? No, don't say that.
Throw it right in their
Okay.
face.
Yeah.
So you have to make a choice. Am I going to love these people? And if I am, then all these other things come with it. It's like picking up that stick that Covey talked about. There are consequences on that other side of it, right? And so sometimes love hurts. If so, get ready to serve and to sacrifice. When we serve and sacrifice, we build influence with people. That is the way to build influence, is to serve and sacrifice. Not to, look at me, aren't I awesome? I get to speak in front of all of you. Yay! Right? That doesn't do it. I mean, what do you get rewards for? For something that you've done for others, right?
Right.
Think about any award. It's for something that you've already done for others, not for, love me. I mean, this is the absurdity of celebrity, right? Wait a minute. We're celebrating you because you're celebrating yourself. What? Because you're you?
Yeah.
Like, what have you done to contribute?
See it all the time on social media.
Yeah, or keeping up with the Kardashians. I don't know why, but for some reason, that's important,
Yeah.
right? So when we serve and sacrifice, we build influence with people. That's the way. Serve and sacrifice. It's a hard way, but that's the way. It's probably not what most people want to hear, right? And anybody was excited by that? Went, woohoo! Sacrifice. Probably not. Okay, but then you get the right to be called the leader. Task and relationship are both required. People fall off one side or the other and they become too task-oriented or too relationship-oriented in many cases. Great line. You can hire a 2-year-old to give orders. You can. Doesn't take a lot to do that. That's like the most mindless, simple thing you can do. Give an order. Okay? Who can come in and accomplish tasks while they build relationships, though? That's really important. Your boss isn't doing that. Hasn't seen you for 7 months.
I mean, I
Right?
see them, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Same with the performance review. It's there, so I guess when it comes around this June, July, well, I guess we'll discuss it then. No feedback. Oh, you're doing a good job. Okay.
I'll put her on the spot, but when you weren't in class and you ever came into Jones Hall, what would happen? Say, hey, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
And then we come talk and how's business and what's going on at work and how are your classes, right?
Yep.
Why?
Why did we do that?
Yeah,
Because he cared enough to ask.
that's right, because you're my student, so I want to know how you're doing. When I saw you 2 days after class, what was my first question to you? Any minivan moments yet, right? Because I want to see you process these things. I want you to learn and grow, right? That's kind of the point. I want you to grow. So there has to be both things. You accomplish tasks, right? But in context of relationships. If when I saw you, I went, I saw you and I went, I'm just going to walk by and say, he's a student after all. Can't be bothered with him. That's a whole different world, right?
Yep.
Well, what good is that? You don't want to learn from that,
Yeah, and
right?
that's something that I really value with the school,
Mhm.
because I've had that with a lot of my professors here,
Mhm.
like that relationship with them. And like in my undergraduate career, I went to a larger, it wasn't that much larger, but the classrooms and stuff were larger for my undergraduate career. And like when we would pass professors on campus, they would literally like look the other way if you didn't have that relationship with them.
I can't speak to the other schools within CSU, and I don't think there's any difference there, but I know the faculty in the School of Business, we have like a missionary-like zeal to want to help you. How can we help you be better at what you're doing? As you said, that it doesn't surprise me that that's been your experience at all, because, we're all kind of oriented that way.
It's like a 10-foot rule.
A 10-foot rule?
Yeah, have you ever heard that?
No.
So Walmart has this 10-foot rule, because I used to work for them when I was younger in high
Uh-huh.
school. And if you're within 10 feet of someone, you're supposed to greet them
Oh,
and speak to them.
okay.
That's
So
what
they've
they
kind
need
of
to
lost that.
Yeah.
But that's how it used to be, and that was like a big passion, because Walmart initially was big on service with the people greeter and, smiling and that kind of thing. So it's like a 10-foot rule.
Well, the point here is it has to come together. If you're just all task and there's no relationship, it doesn't work. If you're all relationship and no task, just doesn't work. Just you can throw yourself off this side of the cliff or that side of the cliff, and you're still throwing yourself off the cliff, right? Okay, becoming servant leaders. How many will change or grow as a consequence of Hunter's lecture? The odds are not good. Okay, the odds are a little bit better in here because I'm forcing you to go through it and think through it, and hopefully you'll work through it, and some things will stick as you work on your project and stuff. But 10% would be good based on Thorndike's transfer of training. And Hunter found this to be true. What's that?
More of us want to be here too.
Yeah, more of you want to be here. You signed up. You're working through this, and then I'm also going to beat this into you in all my other classes in love because I care. But I'm still going to push as much of this into you as I possibly can.
But it's
Right?
still a lot easier to be excited about it in here than it is when I actually get out.
Did you hear what he said? Oh, you were here, right?
Mhm.
Earlier?
Yeah.
Can you tell them? Because I kind of feel.
This
It's a me moment.
It was-
What was that now?
It's way easier for me to be excited about this here,
His
sitting in this
enthusiasm
class,
helps a tremendous
Then-
amount.
than for me when I get back to work
Yeah.
to actually,
You see how
Live it.
how enthusiastic
Okay.
he is.
Yeah, I love this stuff because I see the ripple effects, because if you latch onto this and embrace this, you're going to have positive impacts on people that will be third, fourth, fifth generation of what we've done here. Right?
Yeah, so what did you sacrifice to be in class? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was, but he went on with something else and I was going to leave it alone.
oh, I'm supposed to go brief Congress, our next class, but I'd rather be in this class. So I told them they had to change it, because I do a lot of security stuff. I brief the Cyber Command.
For Congress.
Congress and all kind of different stuff. And I would rather be in this class, it's fun, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's more interesting.
Woohoo! All right. So, Hunter found this to be true in all the follow-up to his training, but I don't think that'll necessarily be the same with you because you're doing a little bit more intensely. And you're going to hear more of this in other classes if you take any other leadership classes, 610, 624, 619, 630. I don't know if 34. You might see me in 44. If you see me in any of these others, you'll hear very similar kind of things. So hopefully this stuff will get deep down into you. Jim I believed this is this one guy at one of the seminars, I believed you 4 years ago, you're going to leave here today, and I will not hear the word servant leadership put together again until you come back a year from now. I can assure you that my bosses won't be behaving that way. This is going to go right back on the back burner. Why don't you just stop coming? It only makes it worse. That was painful, right?
That was hard to hear.
Now, a lot of organizations have that kind of thing, where here's the new program that promises so much, and then they have it, I listen to the program, and then we're on to the next thing, and it just dies off, right? But this shouldn't die off. This has to be part of the way that you think about people, right? What would be the best way to implement this? The quality model, set a standard, identify gaps, alleviate the gaps, and he talked about how to go about doing that. Remember, we are what we repeatedly do. So he talked about foundation, feedback, and friction. Foundation, feedback, and friction. So foundation is what we're doing right now. Read, train, know where you are, begin with the end in mind. I think this is why, we go to church every Sunday. We hear the same thing. We just need to keep being reminded to stay on it, right? What happened if you went to church once? It'd be long gone, right? People need a whole lot more than intellectual agreement that servant leadership is a good thing. You need to actually buy in a real, meaningful, tangible way where this is something that you're going to do because people are human, they're important, they're loved by God. If they're that valuable to God, they should be valuable to you as a manager, right? People need to be reminded more often than they need to be instructed. Which is why we did the servant leadership inventory, so you could see it very clearly, and you could start to think where your areas of strengths and weaknesses. Now, if you're going to be honest with yourself, you saw some deficiencies. If you didn't see any deficiencies, I would love to see the people that work for you, because they're either the happiest people or you're deluded.
You must like me.
Yeah, you must like me, guy, right?
Holy cow, I couldn't believe that.
That's pretty amazing. Feedback stage, few organizations are really good at feedback. One of the reasons I showed you this is because this is very different than most 360-degree feedback mechanisms. Have you ever taken a 360-degree feedback survey? It doesn't cover these kinds of things. Like, I'm somebody that people can trust. That's different, but that's a leadership function. That's not managing as such.